What's up, everybody? Welcome to Podcast Now. I'm Alex, and in this video, I want to talk about if Warner Bros. Cares about the Batman Arkham franchise anymore. So, this is something interesting. This kind of was sparked on a discussion I had on Twitter, which, by the way, an easy plug here. Make sure you guys are following me on Twitter. Podcast Now 15 is my Twitter username. You can find it in the description below. Also, while we're here, make sure you guys are subscribed and have the bell icon turned on. I was talking to somebody on Twitter, and, we were talking about the Arkham Origins remaster, right? If that would ever happen. And I go through ebbs and flows where it's like sometimes I feel good about it and I'm like, they can never not do it, you know what I mean? Eventually we're gonna get these games all in one spot. And then some other times I'm like, you know what, I don't think they care. I feel like they kind of want to leave it behind. So I want to have that discussion. Does not just Warner Bros. Montreal, not just Rocksteady, but really the gaming division of Warner Bros., do they care about the Batman Arkham franchise? Well, I think the easy answer, in a way, is yes, is that we're not going to be so pessimistic there, right? I guess the real question is just well, how much? You know what I mean? Is there a limit how much they care? Because what we know is this. These games are still so popular. They really are. People are still buying these games to this day. There's no denying it. There's also the fact of, Arkham Knight is on the PS Plus collection thing, which don't sleep on that because that's a pretty big deal. There's a lot of big games on the PS Plus collection, a lot of Sony first-party games, right? And then they're kind of filled in by some third-party stuff. Fallout, right? Fallout 4. There's a couple really Battlefield 1 is another big one, and Arkham Knight, and there's a couple more, but that's a pretty big deal. They know Arkham Knight, obviously, I guess being the last one, I'm not saying they think Arkham Knight's the most important, but they know that this franchise is still powerful and still around. Number two, the second reason why they know. Well, Rocksteady is still technically going to be part of that Arkham world. Now, people were talking to me about this, so I made a video a few weeks ago, and I asked, which Batman is going to be in, this game, the Suicide Squad Killer Justice League, because we don't know the time period. They say it's in the Arkham franchise, but does that mean it's after Night? Is it before? Is it in a different timeline, but still in that universe? They could find, and we talked about that, they could find a lot of loopholes, even by saying we're still in this Arkham world, or it's an extension of the Arkham world, or whatever the exact quote was. You can find loopholes in there, to still make it work. And some of the things that people were saying in the comments got me thinking, where it's they really have the option, if they want to retcon as much as they want. And actually, we talked about that back when this game was first announced. Do they pick and choose? I think we maybe talked about it before. If Gotham Knights, basically, if Gotham Knights was going to take place before or after and something like that, you can pick and choose what you want to keep and get rid of from these past Arkham games. And it's still possible that they do that in Suicide. You know what I mean? Now, would it make people happy? No. In fact, it wouldn't make me happy. It's a franchise that it's got its problems. Arkham Knight has its problems. Arkham Asylum and City, for the great games there, they also, by the way, they do have problems. Okay, they are not the most perfect games of all time. I don't really think any game. We all have personal favorites, right? But subjectively, any game is actually not perfect. Okay, so you have Arkham Knight, you have Arkham City, you have Arkham Asylum, and you have Arkham Origins. And again, that's kind of going down the remaster route, where it's well, what do they do with that? That maybe is a sign right there of if they care about the game or not. We kind of just have to wait for that to play out. You could argue that because it's been so long and they still haven't done it, that should show you right there what they think of that game and what they think of the Arkham, world as of right. And by the way, this is not an attack on the Arkham franchise where it's oh man, this franchise has always sucked. They finally realize it and they're finally throwing it in the trash. No, it's just a thing where it's it's maybe an extension of what we talked about with Warner Bros. Montreal, where it's they, I think, have wanted to get away from Batman for as long as humanly possible. After Arkham Origins, they probably, and again, by the rumors of these games that were canceled and stuff, it seems like they wanted to go in a different route, right? They wanted to do Suicide Squad. They wanted to do Wonder Woman. They did the Damian Wayne game. It's clear that they just, it's not like they didn't want anything to do with it. It's that they did what they did. They maybe got the backlash from it being Arkham Origins and what that, I guess, meant back then, and they wanted out, basically, right? They wanted to do something that was, so maybe unfair to say not Batman related, maybe not Arkham related, which is opposite of Rocksteady, which they said they were done with Batman, okay? So there's some weird stuff that's gone on, I would say, inside Warner Bros. In general, but yeah, do they actually care about this franchise anymore? I would say, again, yes. I'd say yes. I think Rocksteady still staying in that universe does mean something. Now, the thing is, again, I think the answer to this question really isn't going to be answered until we see, like, get to play Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League, because that's going to be a game that, like I said, if you want to retcon stuff, you can. It would maybe not be the most popular opinion, but you can, and that would maybe show, I would say this, it would show if they care more about, I guess, what it means versus the power of the license or the power of the IP, right? Because if they're just saying, and this is what people have kind of theorized actually for a little bit, right? If they're just saying that it's part of the Arkham universe, but being very like loose on it, and then when we play the game, it's like, oh, you meant like this, you know what I mean? Like very, very little, or Easter eggs or references, but not really, you know what I mean? Like if you didn't say that, maybe nobody would have even noticed. So if that's the case, if that's what happened, I feel like they care about the franchise only as far as the name will help them out in terms of marketing, in terms of sales, you know what I mean? That's what I think. If the game comes now, okay, I guess that's the more pessimistic point of view. If the game comes out and it's, you know, flat out, like we're really expanding this Arkham universe, something that, as I've said in the past, I think overall they've done a pretty poor job. It's actually not turned out to be an unpopular opinion by me. Nobody has really called me out for it, but my opinion on the Arkham games have always been, you know, amazing. Obviously they have their problems, but one of the biggest things I think they failed at was making it anything more than Arkham. You know what I mean? They tease Superman in Arkham Knight, or they tease Lex Luthor. You know, things are probably going on outside of this little, you know, town that you're, you know what I mean, like a small little area that you're in, right? Obviously bigger than a town, but, you know, besides that, you don't really know anything. They didn't really set up anything. They started to with Knight, and that's what I think Gotham Knights needs to do better, right? They need to really set up that, yeah, you're here, but there's more to it than just this one thing. Because if you want spin-off games, if you want, you know, just side characters in general, you need to make it all believable. And that's generally what even like superhero movies do. If you bring in other people, you're bringing characters. I mean, to make the world a little bit bigger and to give them a little bit more backstories, you start to fill in the blanks, right? So we'll have to see how Suicide Squad does it, because if it comes out and it's like point blank, like, no, this is absolutely in the Arkham universe, we're going to do some really different but incredible things with it. If it's like that, then yeah, the Arkham universe, I'd say, is still pretty darn important to Warner Bros. But if they don't, if it's the option, if it was the first thing I described to you guys, I don't think it means almost anything to them anymore. Again, besides sales, besides reflecting on the past, I mean, Rocksteady does a really good job on like reflecting on what Arkham meant to them, right? Warner Bros. Montreal, if you notice, they don't really care about what Arkham Origins did for them. If you guys have seen, they really don't really do anything for anniversaries or anything like that. No looking back that Rocksteady has kind of become, at least online, like social media wise, known for. But that's a big tell. That's a tell that I would say we can kind of, you can't like put a stat on it, but I think you can see it play out in real time when that game comes out, you know, what the case would be. You know what I mean? Whereas the Origins remaster, that's another one. I mean, that is one that if they do it, I do think they, I guess, well, it would be maybe unfair to say, like, if they don't do it, then they don't care. But, I mean, you take this, you take Arkham Origins, and then you take what's happened with the Arkham world just in general, and you put those two things together, and then it does make that stronger point where it's like they've really left it. And again, it's not to say like it's some massive negative thing. I'm not even saying it's a bad thing to leave the Arkham universe behind, or say, okay, we don't care about you anymore. That's not even a bad thing, because if you want to tell new stories, if you want to have new games, of course you're going to have to let go of some of the older stuff. You know what I mean? It would kind of be the same way as like Naughty Dog, you know, reflecting on Uncharted, but if they never make an Uncharted, if they don't do a collection, if they don't do a remaster, if they don't do a remake, then it's like, oh, they don't care about it anymore. Well, I mean, technically, yeah, they don't care about it anymore, but they're working on new things. You know what I mean? So it's not necessarily a bad thing, but I know so many people love the Arkham universe. A lot of people, I would assume, and I think I've seen it even online over the past couple of years. I mean, there is a big amount of people that still want the Arkham universe to continue. I think that's what Suicide Squad is maybe trying to appeal to, or trying to take that angle where it's like, we want to be different. We want to do our own thing. We want to just be new. You know what I mean? Not what the Arkham universe, and not what we did with Batman Arkham, okay? But we still want to respect that. We know there's a lot of people in that, mindset that they want more Arkham games, and we're going to go from there. We're going to kind of inject some of that into our game. Whereas, and again, as I've always said, like Warner Bros. Montreal, I don't think they could be any more clear. Now, does that mean, and again, because I was the first one on YouTube, I believe the first one to make that theory video that Batman is not dead, okay, in Gotham Knights. Like, I'm gonna give myself like a certificate and hang it on my wall for that. But does that mean like that can't happen, that he actually will be dead and will be gone? I mean, that is one way of making it very clear that you are done with that kind of stuff, you know what I mean? But I don't think it guarantees it. I really don't. I think you can still be done with what you did in the Arkham world. So they can still be done with Arkham Origins and all things Arkham, but they could still include Batman. Because if Batman's even if Batman never becomes, because I know people may want to play as him in Gotham Knights. I mean, we've talked about that even as DLC, right? If they had like Batman as endgame content or DLC stuff, I mean, that would be incredible, but they don't have to do that. They could literally, if they wanted to bring him back and fulfill all of the theories that we have said, they could do it, and they could just not make him playable. He could just be a mentor. We could just see him do stuff, hear him talk. If there's, like, say, Gotham Knights 2, he can be in it, but we just don't play as him. Or maybe we do, but maybe he's not very you don't play as him all that often. Or the spotlight is on other characters. There are ways of doing it, even with bringing Batman back, and by saying, hey, we're distancing ourselves from the Arkham game. So, thought this would be an interesting discussion. I definitely want to hear from you guys in the comments below. What do you think? Do you think Warner Bros. Cares about, the Arkham franchise anymore? Do you think that's what they're doing with Suicide Squad? What do you think about the Origins remaster, if that will ever happen? Let me know. As always, make sure you guys are subscribed to this channel, Podcast Now. Hit the bell icon so you guys know when all these videos go up. Again, you can always follow me on Twitter. Podcast Now 15 is my Twitter handle. The link for it will be in the description below. You can also just search me up on Twitter. Again, Podcast Now 15. Thank you guys so much for watching. I really do appreciate it. I hope to see you all on the next video.